Hello world, Shelly here, and it is day 10 of the Foundation MegaFest. 15 days in a row of foundation reviews, as always inspired by ThaTaylaa's 15 Days of Foundation. She is the queen of foundation reviews. I have her linked in every single one of my foundation reviews, and today I'm going to check out this particular foundation because it claims to be water resistant and it's raining cats and dogs outside. It is the Becca Ultimate Coverage Foundation. This retails for $44 US. You get 1.01 fluid ounces of product in a nice, attractive, sleek glass bottle here. It is getting 4 out of 5 stars with about 1,400 reviews on Sephora's website right now. You can get this in 24 different shades. I have this in the lightest shade Ivory, which is described as lightest beige with pink undertones, and they do recommend that if you are in between shades to go with the lighter shade because of how much pigment is in this foundation. So let's take a look at some of these claims. This is supposed to be full coverage, straight up full coverage, and it's oil-free, which you would think would make it lean toward being most suitable for combo to oily skin. But for the skin types that they list as this being suitable for, sensitive, normal, dry, combo, oily, that's the big 5. That's all of us. That includes me. So this is supposed to give a natural finish with an oil-free full coverage liquid foundation that looks and feels weightless on the skin with 24-hour water-resistant wear. From the fairest of the fair to the deepest of the deep, yes, they do take their 24 shades and they're pretty well gone from the fairest to pretty deep. They don't have as many variations of their deep tones in that 24 shades, but I appreciate that they get there at least. Water-resistant long-wear formula, perfectly balanced distribution of skin true pigments, and 22% water to allow the formula to adapt to all skin types for a second skin full coverage finish. One pump effortlessly covers imperfections, redness, hyperpigmentation, and uneven texture, giving you ultimate confidence. I don't like that they say ultimate confidence there. I don't get my confidence from my makeup. I get my confidence from I'm me. But we're getting off on a tangent. How many of you guys have been around long enough that you remember when I used to go off every time I talked about the It Cosmetics Confidence in a Cream moisturizer? I can't stand that title. Anyway, those are for the old timers, the OG Geek Out of Water friends. No parabens, no sulfates, no phthalates, and this is a cruelty-free brand. They make a specific claim that they are and will remain a cruelty-free brand. However, a couple years ago, they were bought out by Estee Lauder, so their parent company is not cruelty-free. So if you are concerned about that, I personally support brands even if their parent company is not cruelty-free, because my hope is that we can demonstrate with our wallets that there is demand for these cruelty-free products and hopefully influence the parent companies to get on that train. Looking through the ingredients, it's a dimethicone-based foundation, so it is silicone-based. I don't see any indication of added fragrance, which is a good thing. If you are sensitive to fragrance, we'll see if it has any noticeable, discernible scent to it, which sometimes, products, the difference between having added fragrance as an irritant to your skin and the ingredients having a scent, it is two different things, and both can be an issue. This might not have added fragrance, but if it has a discernible scent that is bothersome, then that's worth noting as well. So I will try to note both of these things. If I don't mention a discernible scent, there probably isn't one because I didn't notice one. Let's take a look at this Becca foundation swatched against a few others in my collection. Alrighty, let's swatch. First up is today's foundation, the Becca Ultimate Coverage Foundation in shade Ivory, a nice peachy pink cool undertone. Next is the Guerlain Natural Perfection in their lightest shade 00N Porcelain, a neutral undertone. Third, I've got the Estee Lauder Double Wear Stay in Place in their lightest shade 1C0 Shell. Fourth is the Estee Lauder Stay in Place in 1C1 Cool Bone. Next, I've got the MAC Studio Fix Fluid in shade NW10. I would say this is about the same lightness to darkness as the Becca, but the Becca is a slightly more peach cool undertone than the MAC. And last, I've got the MAC Studio Sculpt in shade NW15. I am starting out with a 43-year-old face. I've got some sun damage on this side, sunspots especially, some extra added texture for a bonus that I like to cover up with my foundation. I do have larger pores around my cheeks and my chin, and some pores and texture that happen in between my eyebrows here that I'm trying to minimize. I do have pronounced smile lines, and I've got some forehead wrinkles happening, and those are all things that seem to cause trouble for foundation. I do not like my foundation to settle into my fine lines at all, thank you very much. So those are the things we are battling. I am normal to dry skin this time of year, pretty much normal, but if the product is especially dehydrating, I will be dry and dehydrated by the end of the night, so I will take note of that as I am discussing my preferences for foundations. Basically, I'm looking at foundations for dry and maturing skin. I don't want things to settle into lines. I want pores and texture to be smoothed. I do not want the formula to be drying or dehydrating. Those are kind of the primary things I'm looking for in my foundations, and the grades that I give are based on those things. So I'm going to go in on one side of my face with a sponge. This is a brand new Real Techniques Miracle Complexion Sponge. I just saw on the Pixie Woo's channel that they call this the MCS. I should start calling it MCS because I like acronyms. And the other side I'm going to use my e.l.f. Ultimate Blending Brush, also brand new. Who dat, girl? These are clean. The website mentions a preference for using a brush to apply this foundation. I'm just going to try the sponge too, just to see if I have a preference one way or the other, what the difference is in the application. Does it have a different texture, anything like that? We have a pump, glorious pump. We like pumps that keep air out of your product so you get less oxidation. It doesn't spoil as fast. You don't have to put your grubby paws in it to get anything out. You won't get germs in there. Lovely. They said one pump covers your whole face, so that's what we're going to try. One pump. Seems pretty thick. Just realized that I did not apply primer. I always apply primer, but that's gonna give a good excuse to try a half and half experiment, hey? Let's do my usual, my Strivectin Line Blur Factor on this half of my face. With this formula being so thick, it's a little bit resistant to blend out with the sponge. However, once you get it blended out, it is looking quite nice. Definitely not full coverage. I'd say it's a light medium right out of the gate. Definitely evened out redness very nicely just with one pass. This foundation looks fine blended out with the sponge, but it is definitely faster and easier and a bit better coverage to blend it out with the brush. So I'm going to say go brush with this unless you just really, really, really love a sponge. But I'd say we're at a solid medium coverage with the brush side. Let's see, I still have a little bit of product left from that one pump, so let's try and even out the other side. Get a little more coverage on my sunspots. For as much coverage as we're getting, I feel like this does look pretty natural for as high of coverage as it's providing. I would call it a solid medium coverage. I can still see sunspots coming through, and I can still see like my little blood vessel that goes through my cheek right here. So I would not say in one pump that this is full coverage. It is nice, solid medium coverage. I think the shade is a smidge too light for me. I'm not self-tanning or anything, but that's a good sign, because if you're paler than me, then this shade may actually work for you. This is the lightest shade that they've got. And in terms of the finish, I think the coverage is really nice. I feel like there's a teeny bit of redness coming through on my chin. On my cheeks, especially on the textured side of my face, I feel like it's clinging or accentuating that texture just a little bit, although it is nicely blurring my pores. It is blurring my pores a lot better on the side that has primer, and the side that has primer, my cheek is also very, very smooth, where the texture of the other side is still pretty visible. So I think that primer is definitely having an impact on the blurring of texture and pores. I use that primer every single day, and I use it in just about all of my foundation reviews lately, so that is a norm for my foundation routine. The texture in between my eyebrows is not looking good at all. The product is kind of patchy in that area, and it doesn't want to stay put. My forehead looks fine. I think the product is not yet settling into any lines, and it looks okay so far. I definitely prefer the primer side of my face. I think it looks a lot more smooth, but the texture of this, it has set down pretty well. It's a tiny bit tacky, so I might set the areas where I'm going to apply blush, bronzer, highlight with a little bit of powder. We'll see if it sets down by the time I get that far. And I think the finish is very nice looking. It's a very natural finish. It's leaning toward matte. It's like a natural satin matte. It's not as satin as it is matte, but it's not a dry looking matte. It's a very nice, natural looking finish, I think. And it looks pretty good. It feels really lightweight at this point. So let's check the time. 1:08 p.m. We'll call our check-in time 1:10, and I'm gonna go put the rest of my face on, and I'll be right back. Here we are. You know, I was gonna start out and do a totally natural face, but full coverage makes me want full glam, and then this all happens, and yeah, so no trouble whatsoever with the foundation. My powder products blended out just beautifully on top. I did end up setting it very lightly with the Laura Geller Balance and Brighten in shade Porcelain. This is my favorite setting powder when I want just a very light set but keep everything in place, and worked really well. It did not seem to impact the texture or the look of the foundation at all, which is good news because I think the finish is really, really pretty. The only thing I'm noticing is that the primer makes a significant difference in texture and smoothness of pores. My unprimed side looks a whole lot more textured, and this is the more textured side of my face, but usually I can blend it all out. Now, typically I wear primer on my whole face, so that is a noticeable difference to me, but otherwise everything blended fine. I have not had any settling into lines that I've had to tap out. No issues there. Everything feels lightweight and comfortable at this point. So on the rest of my face, my blush is the Kevyn Aucoin Neo Blush. This, I just used the light side of it. This is in Pink Sand, and I've got a combination of highlighters. I've got the Smashbox Velada Petal Metal. This is in Prismatic Petal. It is so pretty. It's like a rose gold. And on top of that, I've got some Unicorn Glow. This is a palette from Face Candy. You can get this on the Hush app for $12. We got a little bit of Stardust and a little bit of Fantasy to kind of pull in some pink and purple from my eye look. Speaking of eyes, it's the Athena palette from Bad Habit, also available on the Hush app. If you missed my Hush unboxing, I will link that up here. I've got swatches of all the palettes that Hush sent me. I'm using the Balm Desert as my bronzer today. No trouble with concealer. I'm using the Kat Von D Lock-It in shade L5 Neutral. Is that all that's on my face? Oh, and my lip is Buxom. This is their full-on lip cream in the shade French Martini. Brows are the Kat Von D Brow Struck powder in the shade Walnut, and all these things are always linked down below in the description box. All right, that's where we're at. Check-in time's 1 o'clock, 1:10, right? Was that it? I'll have to double check. And I'll be back in a few hours with a daylight check-in to see the color match out in natural daylight. And I'll be back at the end of the night to bring you my final thoughts. Hey guys, it's been about 4.5 hours at this point, and I just got a good look at this foundation, and it's holding up really well so far. I think it is quite pretty, and the color match is not as light as I thought it was. I think it actually holds up pretty well and matches pretty well compared to my neck and my arms. So pretty good for the color match, which if you're lighter than me, it might make this a little bit too dark. This is their lightest shade. Let me get a little bit closer. You can see what's going on here. I don't think anyone would mistake this for my natural skin, but I do think it's very pretty and it's holding up well. And it's starting to rain right now, so I'm gonna go back inside. But that is where we're at the 4.5 hour mark. I will be back tonight with my final thoughts. 11:01 p.m. That puts us just about at the 10-hour mark. We're about 9 minutes shy of 10 hours. And let's take a look and see how the Becca Ultimate Coverage is holding up. At this 10-hour point, the coverage is holding up phenomenally. Barely a little bit is kind of, my chin is just showing a little bit of redness poking through. It's not even worn away. I would say I did have a sugary donut and had to wipe my mouth, so disregard the missing foundation around my lips because that was my fault. The coverage is still just phenomenally in place. Like, it's very long wearing. This wears wonderfully well. On the downside, it feels dry. My skin is dehydrated. Now, on the side of my face that has primer, it still looks nicely blurred. Pores are blurred. Texture is still blurred. It just feels a little bit dry. But on the side that doesn't have primer, it looks really dry. So I'll do this in the close-up as well, but you'll see like all of my like, do you see how dehydrated my skin is? Like, eek. That's what my skin does when it's really dehydrated. So this is a pretty drying formula, I would say, considering that my skin is pretty much on the normal side and I did my whole moisturization routine this morning. So that is the downside. On the upside, I really don't have any major settling into lines. It's really not an issue. It looks just fine. It doesn't look cakey. Even my nostrils look pretty good at this point. And at 10 hours, they should be very, very cakey. They're only a little bit cakey right now. Not bad at all. Just a little bit of clinging to the dry patches around my nostrils. This just looks really good. Let's zoom in. I think it's settled into my skin very nicely. Like I said, there's a little bit of redness coming through on my chin, but around my mouth, around the motion lines, I don't feel like this is accentuating any of my wrinkles. On the primer side, everything stayed very nice and blurred, pores and texture. Primer definitely made a big difference on the pores and texture on this one. My nose even looks, I would say, not bad, and we had a little trouble with it this morning, so it's not too bad at this point. The texture in my eyebrows, or between my eyebrows, also not looking too bad. I think I had trouble with it, and the trouble didn't get any worse. It's breaking down just a little bit and separating in that area, but not bad at all. And my forehead looks fine. I don't have settling into wrinkles, and I'm pretty impressed with how well this has held up over time. I know it claims to be a 24-hour foundation. I am not going to test it for 24 hours. That is as long as we are going to go with it. I also wanted to point out that the glitter with the Too Faced glitter primer from the Bad Habit Athena palette, I don't think I've got a speck of glitter on my face. I don't think I have any glitter fallout whatsoever. Good stuff, good stuff. So, if I had to give a grade to the Becca Ultimate Coverage Foundation, I'm going to go B+. Here's why. It is drying. It's too drying to make it into the A range. It has a decent shade range, not the most amazing shade range in the world, but 24 shades is a good shade range. and so that's not going to hurt it. I will not penalize it for that. I think the coverage and the wear is fantastic. I think it has a very nice natural looking finish. I think with primer you can get this to behave the way you would like it to. So if you're trying to blur pores and texture, use a blurring primer. Maybe if I try a moisturizing primer underneath it, I would have luck making it less dry. I'm just really pretty happy with this one. I'm gonna go B+ for the Becca. It's a nice foundation. I really like how it has performed. It's been very comfortable. It didn't start feeling dry until about the 8-hour mark. And even so, it's super lightweight. It feels wonderful on the skin. It hasn't transferred at all. Let me just try the phone test. Like, let's pretend I'm talking to you right now. Pretty clean, guys. Pretty clean. Solid B+. This is a really nice foundation. I like it. I like it a lot. There you have it. One more day of the Foundation MegaFest in the books. If you like foundation reviews or enjoyed this one, please give me a thumbs up down below. Please subscribe if you haven't already. Click the notification bell. I post new videos every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 9 p.m. Eastern Time, but we're going all the way till June 22nd every single night with the Foundation MegaFest if you are watching this in real time as these post. 15 days in a row of foundation reviews. We're about 2/3 of the way through it, but we're going to keep on trucking for a few more days. As always, thanks a lot for taking some time out of your day to geek out over makeup with me. I appreciate it. I hope you guys all have an awesome day or night wherever you are in the world. Take care of each other. Bye-bye.